In 1986, The Legend of Zelda was released on the Nintendo Famicom, beginning the story and legend of one of the most iconic and beloved gaming franchises in the world. With numerous accolades, dozens of beloved games, a forgotten TV show, hundreds of various kinds of merchandise, and so much more, The Legend of Zelda continues to enamor fans, and today, we'll be looking at the complete history of this beloved franchise. As mentioned earlier, the original Zelda game, The Legend of Zelda, was released in February of 1986 in Japan for the Famicom, while the rest of the world would get the game on the NES in 1987. With Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka as the directors of the game, they sought to create a game with European medieval inspirations, taking inspiration from franchises like The Lord of the Rings or Disney's Peter Pan. They were notably assisted by Koji Kondo, the legendary composer who created the series' iconic theme and much of the rest of the soundtrack. As the first game in the series, The Legend of Zelda would cement many iconic gameplay mechanics that would be staple in most of the following games, like the open-world action-adventure gameplay, along with the iconic Zelda dungeons, puzzles, enemies, and bosses. In addition to gameplay mechanics, The Legend of Zelda would also introduce iconic franchise characters, like Link, Ganon, Impa, and Zelda. The Legend of Zelda would also follow and introduce the story structure of many other Zelda games. Ganon invades the Kingdom of Hyrule with ambition to take the Triforce for himself. Princess Zelda attempts to thwart Ganon in some way or another, but often finds herself kidnapped, leading Link to set out on an adventure to gain the pieces of the Triforce in order to save Hyrule after defeating Ganon in a climactic battle. With unique gameplay that pioneered one of the greatest video game franchises of all time, The Legend of Zelda was unsurprisingly an overwhelming success, with 6.5 million copies sold, incredible reception, and is considered one of the most influential games of all time. The Legend of Zelda would also get a Wanpaku manga comic to go along with the game in September of 1986. Shortly after The Legend of Zelda was released, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, would release on the same consoles with a Japan release date of January 1987 and a global release date of 1988. Unlike the rest of the series, The Legend of Link does not follow the standard gameplay of a 2D Zelda game. Instead, The Adventure of Link sports a side-scrolling gameplay similar to a platformer or Metroidvania. Despite the different gameplay, The Legend of Link follows a similar plot structure to the rest of the series, where a different Ganon has once again attacked Hyrule, and it is up to Link to save both the kingdom and Zelda through means of the Triforce. As different as The Adventure of Link was, reception of the game was still positive at the time, and the game overcame 4 million in sales. However, the game is seen as something of a black sheep amongst the franchise, due primarily to its different gameplay style. Shortly after The Adventure of Link, we would get Game & Watch Zelda in August of '89, a game Watch Zelda in October, and a barcode battler of Zelda in 1992. A Link to the Past would be the next game in the franchise, about 5 years after The Adventure of Link. During this time, we would see Zelda and Friends on television first, paired with the Mario Bros. TV series in 1989. While the series is iconic amongst Zelda fans for interesting catchphrases and internet memes, it remains a poorly reviewed TV series. Returning to A Link to the Past was also a return to traditional Zelda gameplay on the SNES. A Link to the Past would take away the absolute open world style of The Legend of Zelda, requiring Link to traverse the world in a loose order of dungeons to obtain necessary items and weapons. A Link to the Past would also introduce the Light World and Dark World, a feature that gets used in some variation amongst other Zelda games, and more importantly, A Link to the Past would introduce the iconic Master Sword, which was essential to complete the game with. A Link to the Past would ultimately set a new standard for the series that stands so high it is easily regarded as one of the greatest games of all time, with spectacular reviews across the board and around 6.5 million copies sold. Following A Link to the Past is Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, which released in June of 1993 in Japan, and later in the year for the rest of the world. No longer diverting from Zelda gameplay mechanics, Link's Awakening primarily features the same top-down gameplay, filled with dungeons and a world to explore. However, parts of Link's Awakening features side-scrolling elements, and for the first time in a top-down Zelda game, Link is capable of jumping, a feature that doesn't always return to the franchise. However, the plot of Link's Awakening strays from Hyrule, and instead we find ourselves with Link in the dream world of Koholint's Island, a place devoid of traditional Zelda characters and enemies, and instead inhabited by some counterparts and some Mario enemies instead. While not as exceptional as A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening still stands as an amazing game with over 3 million copies sold on first release. Shortly after Link's Awakening, Zelda would receive 2 CDI games in short succession. Both games were published by Philips Interactive Media instead of Nintendo and would be created for the Philips CDI console. Link, The Faces of Evil, and Zelda, The Wand of Gamelon, and a third published in 1996, Zelda's Adventure, would become infamous among the community as non-canon games to the series. The first two would feature a side-scrolling gameplay like that of Link's Adventure, while Zelda's Adventure would be played more akin to a standard 2D Zelda game, with level designs like that of a dungeon. The games were poorly received for the most part, but did feature Zelda as a playable character to fight against Ganon, in Zelda's Adventure and The Wand of Gamelon. In between the CDI games, we would get Zelda on the Satellaview, and another one in the Satellaview in 1997 as well. In November and December of 1998, Nintendo would release one of the greatest games of all time in Ocarina of Time for the N64. The first 3D Zelda game following the success of the first 3D Mario game, Mario 64, Ocarina of Time would change the series and gaming forever. While Ocarina of Time would still follow much of the Zelda formula with dungeons, bosses, and a story of stopping Ganon from taking over Hyrule, the change to 3D was monumental. Combat became significantly more immersive with widely praised Z-targeting as one of the premier features. With the shift to 3D, dungeons and puzzles became more immersive, and the developers were given a new way to incorporate tricks and puzzles that would delight fans. Other series staples introduced in Ocarina of Time include the usage of horses or rideable companions, the Gorons, friendly Zoras, the Gerudos, Ganon as Ganondorf along with his history as a Gerudo, and a companion character, which was Navi in Ocarina of Time. As mentioned, Ocarina of Time would be considered one of the greatest games of all time, and reception would reflect it, with nearly perfect scores across the board. Ocarina of Time would sell around 7 million copies upon initial release and would win dozens of awards during its time, and its legacy still continues to this day. Following Ocarina of Time's release, Link would represent The Legend of Zelda in iconic fighter series Super Smash Bros. Link would ultimately see himself at the bottom of tier list. The younger, edgier brother to Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, would be released in April of 2000 in Japan, and later that year for the rest of the world. Like Link's Awakening, Link's adventure takes place outside of Hyrule, in the land called Termina, where he is tasked with solving the world's problem before the iconic moon crashes into the Earth in 3 days. Majora's Mask offers a unique gameplay style, derivative of normal Zelda games, with the 3-day mechanic, along with different powers based on mask usage. There's still, however, dungeons, swords, and puzzles to be solved and explored. Majora's Mask would also introduce iconic characters like Skull Kid, the Happy Mask Salesman, Tinkle, and Majora's Mask itself. While not as highly received nor widely sold as Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask would still perform exceptionally amongst critics and fans, with over 3 million copies sold, an incredible critical acclaim. Furthermore, the legacy of Majora's Mask strikes deep interest amongst fans for its dark and intriguing lore, bringing about an abundance of fun fan theories. In February of 2001, The Legend of Zelda returns to Hyrule in a 2D game style, with The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. Acting more like a split Pokemon game, Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages offer a similar yet different game. As the name suggests, Oracle of Seasons grants seasonal differences that Link is capable of changing with the Rod of Seasons, and in Oracle of Ages, Link can manipulate time with the Harp of Ages. In addition, Oracle of Ages appears to be more puzzle-focused, while Oracle of Seasons focuses more on action and combat. It should come as no surprise now that Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages were successes, with nearly 4 million copies sold each, and great reviews across the board. At the end of 2001, Link would also return to the Super Smash Bros. Series in Super Smash Bros. Melee, accompanied by Zelda, Ganondorf, and his younger counterpart, Young Link. With 4 representatives, the Zelda franchise stood as one of the series with the widest cast, but still with poor competitive placements with the exception of Sheik, Zelda's alter ego. The end of 2002 in Japan and the beginning of 2003 for the rest of the world would see 2 new Zelda games released, as both The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords and Wind Waker were given to the world. In addition to 2 new Zelda games, we would also see Link make a guest appearance on the GameCube versions of Soul Calibur 2 as a playable character. 4 Swords would get released packaged with A Link to the Past, but it was still an independent game where Link finds himself with a 4 sword that splits him into 4 copies of himself to fight new recurring villain Vati and Ganon. The game focused on the possibility of multiplayer and was still well received by critics. However, 4 Swords was undoubtedly overshadowed by the Wind Waker. The newest 3D Zelda game, Wind Waker was released to harsh fan expectation, especially since the art style was unlike that of modern games. Still, Wind Waker would prove its worth by providing an incredible interpretation of the Zelda formula, with an emphasis on exploring islands across the sunken Hyrule. Wind Waker would introduce the Ritos, the Koroks, and Beetle, though it later become staples in the Zelda universe. As expected by now, Wind Waker was a strong success, with nearly 5 million copies sold and great reception by critics. However, reception of Wind Waker would still get drowned by criticism about the cartoony graphics that would seem to haunt Nintendo upon making their next 3D Zelda game, even though the game has aged wonderfully in the eyes of fans today. An unexpected sequel, The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords, would be followed by 4 Swords Adventure in 2004 on the GameCube. Once again, Link is tasked with defeating Vati and Ganon with the 4 Sword. 4 Swords Adventure would take advantage of Game Boy and GameCube connectability as a key gameplay mechanic, and would garner good but not exceptional reception. In the later half of 2004 and early 2005, the Minish Cap would be released on the Game Boy Advance, returning to a non-4 Swords 2D adventure. Minish Cap would feature a shrinking mechanic in the form of Link's hat to solve puzzles. Minish Cap would also mark the final appearance of Vati as a primary villain, and as a whole, Minish Cap would sell just under 2 million copies, with good reviews. Minish Cap would mark the end of Zelda on the Game Boy, and the DS would be introduced to Zelda with a Tingle spin-off called Freshly Picked Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land in 2006 in Japan. The spin-off follows Tingle in his quest for as many rupees as he can get, and the game was met with warm reviews. The end of 2006 would see the release of Twilight Princess, which was released on both the GameCube and as a release title on the Nintendo Wii. While originally a GameCube exclusive, the upcoming release of the Wii pressured Aonuma to transition Twilight Princess to support both. Twilight Princess would differentiate heavily from the Wind Waker, with both a darker aesthetic, but also a darker plotline, following the collision of Hyrule and the Shadow Realm, where Link spends part of his time in. We meet Midna, the Twilight Princess herself, as a notable companion, and like other games during this time, Link somehow gains the ability to transform into a wolf. Twilight Princess would quickly become one of the best-selling Zelda games with nearly 9 million copies sold across both platforms, and win plenty of awards and garner plenty of great reviews. Twilight Princess would also get one of the longest-running Zelda mangas, with nearly 6 years of continuous prints and about 70 chapters loosely based on the game's plot, as well as 2 spin-off games, Link's Crossbow Training on the Wii in 2007, and My Nintendo Picross, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess for the 3DS in 2016. In 2007, Nintendo would release the first DS Zelda game, with Phantom Hourglass. Returning to the sunken world of Hyrule, Phantom Hourglass would serve as a sequel to The Wind Waker, with the same cel-shaded graphic style. Phantom Hourglass would take advantage of the DS's dual screens to employ a unique seafaring gameplay. The game would sell over 4 million copies and would receive good reviews. Right between Phantom Hourglass and its sequel, Spirit Tracks, The Legend of Zelda would return to Smash Bros. And Brawl, with nearly the same cast replacing Young Link for Toon Link. Somehow, The Legend of Zelda competitive's Smash Bros. Performance got worse. We would also see another Tingle knockoff, called Ripen Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love in August, exclusive to Japan. As mentioned, Spirit Tracks would serve as a sequel to Phantom Hourglass, with a focus of trains instead of the Great Blue Sea. Unlike Phantom Hourglass, whose Link continues his adventure from Wind Waker with Tetra, Spirit Tracks sees a new reincarnation of Link and Zelda on a new adventure. Zelda serves as the companion in Spirit Tracks, marking her proper appearance as a playable companion, giving her some of the most depth and character in the series. Overall, the game garnered warm reviews and sold a comfortable 2.5 million copies. Following Spirit Tracks, Ocarina of Time would receive a remaster on the 3DS, marking the first of several remasters of classic 3D Zelda games. While planned for a release in 2010, Skyward Sword would be released in November of 2011 for the Wii. Unlike Twilight Princess, which was a cross-platform game, which didn't get to fully utilize the Wii's motion control capabilities, Skyward Sword utilized the Wii's newest Motion Plus accessory, which gave it more precise motion controls for precise sword-swinging motions and certain puzzles. Skyward Sword would serve as the origin of the Zelda continuity, featuring a tale of the original goddess Hylia, and the war for the Triforce between her and Skyward Sword's main antagonist, Demise, who ultimately reincarnates to Ganondorf throughout the series. Skyward Sword is one of the most story and character-driven Zeldas, featuring a backstory for the Master Sword with Fi, the Master Sword's usually dormant AI, along with a more romantically implied relationship between Link and Zelda at the time, also leading to a more expressive Link, despite being a perpetual silent protagonist. Skyward Sword would also feature one-time iconic characters like Groose and Fi's counterpart and major villain Girahim. While Skyward Sword would garner critical acclaim amongst reviewers, fans and some critics would point out the finicky control setup and linear playthrough, leading to one of the most mixed Zelda games to this day. Regardless, Skyward Sword still sold a strong 3.5 million copies. That same year, the Zelda franchise would receive the Hyrule Historia book, revealing the overarching Zelda timeline, which had been kept a secret, leading to much fan speculation. This reveal would start with Skyward Sword as the origin, and Ocarina of Time serving as a pivotal branch of timelines, based on whether Link would succeed or fail as an adult or child. In 2013, we would see a remaster for The Wind Waker on the Wii U. Zelda would once again return to A Link to the Past with sequel A Link Between Worlds at the end of 2013. Similar to A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds features a dark mirror world of Hyrule called Lorule, similar to the Dark World in A Link to the Past, where Zelda counterpart Hilda serves as a surprise villain. A Link Between Worlds would prove itself a worthy sequel of A Link to the Past, with great reviews and over 4 million copies sold. A Link Between Worlds would be followed by Hyrule Warriors beginning in 2014 for the Wii U, then the 3DS, and then the Switch. Hyrule Warriors would serve as a Zelda version of Dynasty Warriors, a general hack-and-slash game which featured beloved characters all across the franchise like Agatha, Zant, Girahim, Sheik, and more. Hyrule Warriors garnered warm reviews and solid sales. We would also see Zelda and Friends return to Smash Bros. And Smash Bros. 4, with Sheik being a standalone character from Zelda for the first time, and Link would make an appearance as a playable character in Mario Kart 8 as part of the first DLC pack. Additionally, a remaster of Majora's Mask on the 3DS was released in 2015. Six years after Skyward Sword, with one of the longest hiatuses for the 3D portion of the Zelda franchise, Breath of the Wild would be released in March of 2017 for both the Wii U and the Switch, similar to Twilight Princess long ago. Breath of the Wild would revolutionize Zelda and the gaming industry as one of the greatest video games as a pioneer for its truly open world. Moving away from the linear design of Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild would feature an open world where players could freely choose where they wanted to explore. Breath of the Wild would ultimately forego the traditional dungeons for divine beasts, which had an open puzzle system, and shrines serving as smaller dungeon puzzles. Due to the open world format of Breath of the Wild, the story is primarily told through memories that Link has to retrieve due to losing it in his first confrontation with Ganondorf. We follow his memories, learning about his fallen comrades, Urbosa, Revali, Daruk, and Mipha, as we explore a beautiful yet post-apocalyptic Hyrule. As a result of how truly open Breath of the Wild is, it has become one of the most speedran games, with players rushing the tutorial to head straight to the final boss. Breath of the Wild has also received some of the highest praise from critics since Ocarina of Time, having become a contender for one of the best games of all time. With such high reviews, revolutionary gameplay, and serving as a launch title for the Switch, Breath of the Wild sold a combined 34 million copies, blowing the rest of the series out of the water. The Zelda group would once again return to Smash in Smash Ultimate. For 6 years following Breath of the Wild, the world would eagerly anticipate its sequel, Tears of the Kingdom. During that time, a remake of Link's Awakening would be released in 2019 for the Switch, and Skyward Sword will get a remaster in 2021. We would also see another Hyrule Warriors spin-off in 2020 with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity that served as an alternate story for the past of Breath of the Wild. Finally, in 2023, Tears of the Kingdom would be released as a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. Following the exact gameplay of Breath of the Wild with shrines and dungeons that don't resemble traditional Zelda dungeons, Tears of the Kingdom would once again feature a story focused on the past, particularly the war between Hyrule's first ruler Rauru and Ganondorf, a time where Zelda inadvertently traveled to. Tears of the Kingdom would expand on the Hyrule of Breath of the Wild by featuring both a sky portion to traverse, along with an underground layer, by diving through holes littered throughout Hyrule. However, the main selling point of Tears of the Kingdom was Link's new ability to fuse to create structures and devices, using Zonai tools that allowed players to create many interesting and hilarious machines to assist them in their journey, or just for fun. Unsurprisingly, Tears of the Kingdom would become an immense hit with stellar reviews and over 21 million copies sold. The latest mainline Zelda game, Echoes of Wisdom, would be released in September of 2024 for the Switch. Returning back to a 2D style, with the developers of Link's Awakening's remake at the helm, Echoes of the Kingdom would be the first mainline game to feature Zelda as a playable character instead of Link. Unlike Link, who utilizes his sword and shield throughout his journey, Zelda uses the newfound weapon, the Tri-Rod, which allows her to create objects to assist her in her quest to free Link and restore Hyrule that has been damaged by the Still World that was released by Ganon. Echoes of the Kingdom would receive mostly positive reviews and would break 2.5 million copies sold. And that is the entire Zelda history until now. As one of the most influential gaming franchises of all time, the Zelda franchise has a storied history full of games with much more on the horizon, like a Hyrule Warriors games following Tears of the Kingdom's pass, a movie that is planned for a 2026 release, and with the new Switch 2, it is all but confirmed that more Zelda games are surely on the way. As a fan, I look forward to seeing more of Zelda as the franchise continues to grow and capture the hearts of fans across the world.